test. We're working on the RACES strategy for reading response. So as we go through these, take notes. I'm going to take them up and check them just to make sure that you have them. So RACES is a strategy. It helps students answer short response questions in writing, and you guys see a lot of those. The first step is to restate the question. So first and foremost, you have to know what the question is asking, and then you'll be able to use that question to create a topic sentence. So what does that look like? So what was life like for serfs in the Middle Ages? When we take that and restate it, it looks like this. And you have an example here. Life for serfs in the Middle Ages was. So we take that question and we flip it around to make a statement. And then we complete that question with step two. So step two is answer the question. So underline keywords and phrases in the question. Look for task words. So words that tell you what to do. Explain, describe, compare, contrast, discuss, evaluate. And those will help you to answer it. So the question asks us, what was life like for serfs in the Middle Ages? So from our first step, we say life for the serfs in the Middle Ages was, and then in step two, answer the question. Very difficult. Okay. So step three is called citing evidence or cite evidence. It's where you pull examples from the text that are going to support the answer that you just gave to the question. They tell which piece of evidence, excuse me, make sure that you tell which piece of evidence you use, be as detailed as possible, and make sure that you don't quote like extremely long chunks of text. So a quote should not be more than maybe 2 sentences long, maybe three. Three is getting a little long. Okay, so here's an example. Excuse me. What was life like for serfs in the Middle Ages? Life for serfs in the Middle Ages was very difficult. So here in red, we have a paraphrase, which is you take a quote or a section of text and you put it into your own words. In document 2, it stated that they often worked 7 days a week because they had to grow food for the manor and themselves. Also, document 4 stated that serfs, quotation mark, also have very little freedom because both landowners and church leadership could tell them what to do, period, quotation mark. In the fourth step, you explain your answer. So explain how the evidence you gave makes your point. So why use those quotes? If you remember the original question, it says, what was life like in um, in the Middle Ages? And both of these quotes, the paraphrase and the direct quote, which is this section in purple, that's in quotation marks, both of those let you know what life was like for serfs in the Middle Ages. So both of those quotes explain, or excuse me, help support the answer that we gave in step 2. So in step 4, demonstrate your understanding of the question through your response. So this is the section of the answer where you let the person who's reading know that you understand what you read and what you're answering, because it gives your ideas about the text or about the quote. Your explanation should be longer than the quote, because keep in mind, this is your response to a question. So we already know, as teachers or as an audience, we already know what the text says, right? But it's more important to know what you're thinking about it. So here's an example. Life for serfs in the Middle Ages was very difficult. So that's step 1. Step 2. In document 2, it stated they often worked 7 days a week because they had to grow food for the manor and for themselves. Also, document 4 stated that serfs also had very little freedom because both landowners and church leadership could tell them what to do. So that's step 3. Step 4 is the explanation portion. A lack of freedom and constant hard work would make life unpleasant for anyone. Excellent. So step 5 is a summary sort of sentence. Your last sentence should be a summary of your entire paragraph. You restate your topic sentence in a different way. So let's look at it. And I'm just going to skip through this and just read the section in green. In conclusion, a serf in the Middle Ages would have had an incredibly difficult life. Great summary. So your entire paragraph would look like this. Excellent. Okay, and so my expectation So as we answer the questions that we get for each of our text, and especially for our current text, this is the format that you should give it back to me. I will be looking for it. Our rubrics on the assignments that I assigned to you on Schoology will make sure you have each piece of the racist strategy. Okay. And I'll give you a graphic organizer to kind of help you along for the first couple of questions that we get, just so you guys can kind of get used to it. If you have a question, raise your hand. Be more than happy to help.